welcome everybody, and particularly welcome to my amazing guest, Emmy Hayes with Jayne Studios. She is an incredible speaker today, and I'm excited for her really to share her wealth of knowledge for particularly early stage healthcare founders and how they can position themselves, particularly when things are it feels like ebb and flow day to day of, what is the target market that you're approaching? What is the business model? Like, what is my brand, even mission statements, value statements, all of that. I feel like can be very much fluid in the early days, as many of us on the call know. And Emmy is going to share her insights and advice and kind of best practices for founders as they navigate that. Before we get started, just some quick housekeeping items. Make sure you're on mute if you're not talking. We will have plenty of time to go into kind of Q&A at the end of our session. And we'll certainly ask you all to ask live questions at that time. But if you are not already, be sure to put yourself on mute. And with that, I'm going to really pass the mic over to Emmy. So Emmy, please introduce yourself even better than I've already done. And do you have the ability to share your slides too?
I should. It's appearing so. So we'll see what happens.
Perfect. I love it. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. Eller gave me a very nice intro, but I'm Emmy Hayes, and I am the founder and creative director of Jayne Studios. A creative agency focused on women's healthcare and wellness branding. It's been kind of a journey to this point. So my full creative resume, I've been doing it for 10 years now, which blows my mind, but started off in journalism and writing and found my way to the glamorous world of advertising as a copywriter in Chicago. And, very hungry, very excited to get this creative career off and going. And my first client that I worked on by myself as a copywriter with my team was Medline. So I was very much introduced to healthcare very early on, and found it to be both a struggle creatively, but also super fun. So that kind of guided me through different titles at different kinds of companies, agency, startup, technology software. But my thorough line in client work has really been with Medline, Sanofi Diabetes, Actelion Therapeutics, and a few other smaller brands, but really just helping them with a lot of social media work, where it started, and evolving into brand, tone, and voice. So I stepped off on my own about 3 years ago and started really connecting with the femtech community and kind of early stage healthcare companies, and applying my talents and resources to help really launch innovative and caring companies.
Well, that is a perfect background and segue, I think, into what's going to be an interesting conversation for the founders that are online today, which, is really about how can you help them understand best practices for crafting that narrative. In particular, I know with kind of the slant towards healthcare companies and your experience specifically with femtech, or just, but again, the healthcare angle is important for our founders because it is so unique, especially in these early days when your customers can likely be very, very different than your users, and and you actually might have many different types of customers or users. How do you craft that? How do you craft that message and that branding appropriately? So, Emmy, maybe let's start out. If you have, do you want to share your slides now and go through that? You want to start there?
Yeah, let's get that up and running. Perfect. I was just going to say, early stage companies I found with branding, I don't think there's really missteps you can make when you're first starting out because you don't know and you're always constantly learning. But definitely in the ecosystem of branding, even, since our lovely current pandemic situation, it's really shifted everything. But, healthcare is even bigger than it was, and really even major brands are really focusing more on that lifestyle connection. Is it educational? Is it, more human? Is it approachable? And so really it's nice because I've been working on things like this for a long time, and it's finally meeting kind of the mainstream. So I just wanted to add that little oversight before we jump into some exercises here. So let's do this. I'm going to share my little browser and then click present. And does everyone see a full slide?
Perfect. It looks great on my end.
Sounds good. So Eller, you want me to start to dig in here?
Let's dig in. And
All
then,
right.
and as you're digging in, I want to invite everyone that's on, as questions pop up, questions arise, either jot them down and wait till we get to the end, or if you're worried about forgetting what you want to ask, drop it in the chat. I think everyone should have access to that chat feature at the bottom of your screen. And I can monitor the chat to interrupt you, Emmy, if that makes more sense, or to hold questions till the end. We can kind of do both.
Let's do live. If anyone has anything to say, we'll just get into it. This is more conversation.
Love it.
So we'll just go like that. So just ping me when needed. All right. So finding focus. This is the Jayne Studios base level collection of creative exercises and brainstorming ideas that we use with our own clients, and also something that this past year I've offered up in a workbook that you all will get a link to. But it's kind of the culmination of all of my favorite exercises as a writer, as a creative director, and we had to pivot a little bit away from marketing lingo, and your consumer is really important. The patients are really important. But, in a year like no other last year, I really wanted to focus on you as an entrepreneur, as a founder, taking a breath and taking some time to really recognize, what we ourselves as entrepreneurs and founders bring to our brand. So I'm going to share 3 exercises in this little deck. They're all within the workbook, so you don't have to take notes if you don't want to. I know I said 5, but we'll kind of surprise you there. We'll add a few bonus rounds here and there. But anyway.
And Emmy, do you want me to go ahead and share the workbook with everyone?
Yeah, if you'd like to. I didn't really order it to like follow along in there, but yeah, you can share the link whenever you want.
Perfect. There you go, if anyone wants to access it.
So finding focus. First exercise. I'm sure many of us have done this in a variety of ways, whether it's personal work, team values, team retreats, but listing your values and kind of crafting your mission statement. So this is a very short list, but you're encouraged within the workbook to really add some more of your own. But you sit down and you look at a list, or you write a list of values, and they can be anything. I just threw in, family, career, fun, music, anything that you personally resonate with. Always fun to list out and kind of think about it, and then list about 3 to 5 that you're really comfortable with. So for this example, I did just that. I picked 5 for kind of what I don't know, resonates with Jayne and women's healthcare in general. So, I was like, really community and authenticity, health, connection, and freedom. Those are kind of they're different core values, but kind of our baseline core values and what we do at Jayne and with our clients. But, I know if you're not a strong writer, or if writing really scares you, I know it does a lot of people. I find this exercise to be one of the most helpful to help you craft mission statements, taglines, short descriptors. I know there's a lot of crowdfunding sites and even Twitter, you have a character limit, and that is really intimidating. So I feel like at least if you can find your values, those words, and use them as a guide, it's one of the best exercises to just get really focused and succinct in your messaging. So what does that look like? I love examples. So if I were to take those 5 words that I picked up from my value system and was to write missions, or tiny little thought-provoking nuggets, it kind of looks similar to this. So, maybe to empower our communities to take care of themselves. Well, community was a value. So, that's rooted in what we pay attention to at Jayne and a project that we're building out. Um, Authenticity, ourselves, themselves, helping women be educated about, healthcare services, new direct-to-consumer healthcare products, really take ownership over what they, are learning about. So if I were to kind of look at health and connection, I don't know, maybe it's I'm doing what I do to make others feel their best. So I'm connecting with someone to make them feel better. Maybe that's, their health within our field, or maybe it's just they had a bad day and our social media post made them laugh. It's kind of how do we, bring together our connection as a brand with our end user or just with the general audience. And finally,
And
go
Emmy,
ahead.
I have a question actually, because
Yeah.
I know that there are some people on here that have like medical devices and products. And I know, like, working with Medline, that you and I, when we were talking, prepping for this, like that experience of creating, like, how do you bring a value statement or a compelling, like, narrative, almost, narrative statement like this to something that can feel a little cold or
Yes.
yeah.
That's a great point. And really kind of what, we're talking about spreadsheets to story. And I know with a lot of devices, there's a lot of user experience attached there, discovery of product and, end user buy-in, whether that's a hospital system or a consumer. So it's pretty hefty. And I kind of depend on my own retail experience there. I also worked with a lot of retail marketing jobs here and there, granola bars on the end cap. And I would say it's very similar to that, where it's super important to have a very like one sentence, what it does, what your device does. And that's really hard. But I think more and more with devices or mechanical offerings, consumers have changed and they really want to know kind of more of the story, the evolution of the device. How did it start? How was it built? What exactly is it that it does? So I think, I mean, to me, it's just more retail focused, but it's still based in your values.
Right. Because I know, God, what was the one you worked on? Was it a bedpan?
Yeah, that was my first job. Okay, so yes, like I said, I was all excited in Chicago in a high rise. I'm going to work for Nike and I'm going to work for Dove and all these award-winning campaigns. And my first creative director came to me and said, "All right, you have to redo a poster that will be present in all hospital rooms of how to basically utilize the liner for the bedpan." And hard-hitting journalism right there. You know what though? Again, okay. Worked with the talented designer and we made it really functional. And I think that was really important. So going back to your point, sure, it's 4 steps to really make sure this product is used properly, that it's, showcased in the right way. But it was distilling really important information that we don't think about every day into something that a nurse or a tech could look at and know exactly what to do.
And I think that's where even like this going through your values can feel like, oh, it's a little mushy, but even for medical devices or products that are that you're selling either to a physician or to a consumer or a patient, like if you can compel them to use it using emotion or their personal values or experience, like even better. So
even better. And and we've seen leaders in kind of spaces have a personal connection to the device they've either created or started up. And especially in healthcare, I feel like a lot of the creatives and founders I've met were very empathetic people. It's a field full of empathy. And so to be quite honest, there's the bottom line and, introducing a very medical grade device, but it is very emotional. There's a lot of emotion behind where it started and that should be shared. I mean, and it can be shared and not a too mushy way, because I get that. There's kind of a fine line sometimes, but I think incorporating the right pieces, and that's where the magic happens.
Right. Well, sorry, go ahead, keep going.
No, this is great. I mean, basically that kind of leads into this next one, which I kind of made more business line focused. Might be something to be more device conscious, or super into the data side, software side, to help solve issues that deserve a new way of doing what has always been done. I mean, that's really what we're doing here as founders, as entrepreneurs. We've seen a different way to do something. So that can also come out of this, like freedom. Freedom can be interpreted to you and your brand in any way that you see fit. And to me, that's freedom to discover and to create a new way of doing something. All right. Okay, this one I really like because it kind of sets our clients that we work with up in a different mindset, and it can be applied to really any brand, but your brand, your best friend. So I hope everyone on this call has a best friend, and if not, you can be my best friend. But when we have those relationships, they're some of the most important relationships we have, and our best friends are our best friends for a reason. They are super fun or super out of control, but they bring something out in us, and we always feel not obligated, but really motivated to give back. So if you look at your brand, this might be a fun audit if you already have a brand kind of established and think of it in a different mindset. But what do you always look forward to about your brand? So we deal in our business every day, sometimes in the weeds. But if we take a step back and think about the product is solid, the team you have working, your partners are really great and encouraging. But have you really thought about the cohesive brand story, even your logo? Like, what is it that you look forward to most about those assets, about that story? What would a text message look like from this brand? And so this one is super fun. Do they use emojis? Does your brand say okay with a period at the end? Do they abbreviate over, a lot? Are they over analyzers? And so it's just a fun, creative prompt to think about. If I were texting my brand, what would it say back to me, and what emoji would be their favorite? And then how excited would you be to see this brand, this friend? And that kind of goes back to what you look forward to, but it kind of is, are you even excited to see that logo? I know also we see it every day, and it's really nice when you get a compliment on the branding from a neutral party, a new investor. You feel really validated, but sometimes it's a little tweak here and there that can spark a little bit more joy. Or if you think it's not telling the best story it can, or you've added a new component, it's okay to update that. And I think that kind of goes back to early stage. We're in it, we're trying our hardest, we know our story, and oh my gosh, I just got this really great piece of advice from an investor I respect so much, but that's a whole different ball game, and it's okay. I guarantee you that brand will evolve with you, and really setting it up to evolve with you is the biggest key to success in my experience.
And Emmy, would you say that, like, when I'm looking at these questions, I think about a bunch of different types of friends that I have. Like, I have like my fun friend that I would say yes to do anything with. And then I have like my most loyal and trustworthy friends. Do you are you basically telling entrepreneurs, like, pick the type of best friend you want and try to emote that through your brand? Is that fair?
That is fair. And I was just about to get to that point. We all have those different friends that we have different connections with.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. But sometimes there's that one friend, that one that you're always excited. You can pick up the phone after not talking for 3 months and just pick up where you left off. They know you in and out. That might be more of the friend that is core to this exercise. Yeah. But another exercise you could think about is how would my brand be the fun friend? How would they be the serious friend? How would they be the dependable one and then the rebel? because we always need a little rebel in there.
Yeah.
That's what makes it interesting. Those are the best kinds of nights out. So yeah, if you're excited about that friend more than the other friend, maybe that's something you should think about your brand. So, it's a two-way street, which I think is funny to talk about because, what is a brand? It can get so like out there and it's just a product. It's just this thing. Well, it doesn't have to be. And that's really where, you give your attention to it. But what does it bring out in you? Because we have those friends that bring out different sides of us as well. And so, if I'm saying at a brand, it's been sitting there for like 4 months, it feels kind of stale already. Well, maybe it's not bringing out, I'm frustrated by it. It's not bringing out my creativity. It's not bringing out my, I don't know if, that customer is going to really get it. Like, I don't know if they're really going to see what we have to offer with just, a tagline we made 2 years ago. And that's really, kind of core messaging, just building something from the beginning that can evolve.
Yeah.
All right. So now that we're all BFFs, let's go on to one of my favorite writing exercises, your elevator pitch in Mad Lib style. I loved Mad Libs as a child, still do. But this is also one of the trickier areas for founders to craft. And it is hard. I'm not going to lie. It's hard. So I thought about it and I'm like, well, a formula that, isn't super strict is a Mad Lib. Who are you? Who's your brand? Who's your company? What is your thing? How are you going to, disrupt this market and bring your talent to the market? And then I added this for a bonus because manifestation and not everything, but it's important as founders to be realistic about what you need and what you want for your company. And that does come, there's some power in coming up with, we're gonna raise this much money and do 1, 2, and 3. And that's kind of the afterthought maybe in a PR release. So you can think of this as your elevator pitch. You can think of it as your LinkedIn bio tidbit. You can think about it as your PR, your press release. This is just the bare bones of who you are, what you do, and why it matters.
And Emmy, I would say like that second Mad Lib, like after raising dollar amount, company name is set to do X, Y, and Z. I have found that whenever founders, particularly in our portfolio, approach me about, okay, we're getting ready to raise our next round, we want to raise this much. One of my first questions to them is, okay, like why that amount and what are you going to achieve with that amount? And it's shocking. Like it's an exercise because a lot of founders just put the number out there. But I think if you can identify and clearly state, this is what, like, we've mapped it out, this amount of money, this new capital infusion will allow me or enable me and my team to hit this goal, and this goal. It all of a sudden becomes a much more compelling fundraising story than just, well, we're early stage and we need this much money to get going and to make new hires. Like, okay, but that's not a super compelling or exciting pitch to an investor. So that I love that you've actually like outlined this in a Mad Lib form, because I generally am just asking founders like, well, okay, that's great that you're ready to raise that next round. Why and what is it for? And can you like actually articulate that? What is it for?
Yes. And it's more of a common problem than you think, which is interesting to me sometimes of like, well, but what will you do? And it's the why. But this also is a great tool for you as a founder or founders you work with, or really anyone starting any project. It makes you become very specific. And that's hard. I've worked with a lot of companies and founders who, well, we're not really in one thing. We don't really do this, but we don't do that. So it makes them think, what is it though? Because you have one line, you have one space that you have to describe.
Yeah.
And it's okay. I always say it's okay if you don't know exactly right away, but you only have a few seconds, maybe more than that, to get to it. And I struggle with it still, even helping crafting, these messages. But yes, that has also been very helpful. This exercise has been really helpful with being very specific.
Yeah.
All right.
And again, before you get into the next, go to the next slide, but I'll just say, because I know we had a few people join midway through. If you have questions or want to ask something, you are welcome to submit your question or say, hey, I want to ask my question live in the chat, and you can certainly come off of mute to do so.
Definitely. Okay, so those are the 3 exercises. There are plenty more in the workbook, so you will get 5. So I promise there. However, I did want to kind of end on this a little bit. So I believe everyone is creative. You will hear it outside of the industry, outside of the advertising marketing industry. Well, I'm not creative. I understand that. There's different levels of creativity in what we possess, and you wouldn't want me in your spreadsheet, but and I respect that. But I feel like you might also be not intimidated, but just to know that it's okay to explore your own creativity and explore some ideas. And as entrepreneurs, you probably are really creative, because no matter what you're doing, that takes a different type of brain and different type of thinking. But these are 4 little things that I like to use, not maybe out of the box, maybe some old school ones, but these I find really help get the juices flowing. So word search puzzles, probably from my grandpa Kenny back in the day, but those lovely little paperback books in, the Walgreens checkout. I just find it therapeutic, first of all, little meditation moment. It takes you away from screen, and finding these words, it's kind of like a thesaurus. You're kind of like, I don't know, sometimes it can spark an idea, or it can spark a series you want to create, or apply an attribute to your product launch. But if anything, 5-10 minutes a day with a good old word search puzzle, and I'm clear-minded and maybe like a little inspired about a new word to add into my pitch. Categories, revisited this during the pandemic, but good old board games, word association games, super helpful when you're kind of stuck maybe in a brainstorm or by yourself. It's really nice just to have a category and start through the alphabet. Again, get some ideas flowing in different ways.
And I see that you have here, like, great for virtual brainstorming. Like, do you recommend, like, for virtual teams, like, if everyone's on a call, or like you personally, or just because I have been in that moment where I've said to myself, like, I am not a creative person and I have to come up with a brand for something. I mean, for those, Emmy, about it. And I know we have a few companies, portfolio companies on here. When I had to come up with like the brand for Jumpstart Insight or Jumpstart Refinery, it was like, oh my God, like, I can't, how do I even do this? And it's a totally different mindset than like my traditional, like, business and operations focused self, that like doing this. I never really thought of these. So I love it, like playing a game that just loosens up your mind into that creative setting, if you will.
Definitely. I mean, categories is great for that. There's all kinds of different creative card packs out there too. And sometimes it's just a fun fact to start the day. But yeah, I get it. Facilitating a lot of brainstorms. Some things work really well, and some things have not worked very well. But I find, quick hits. You can't think too much. I have some training in improv, and that's a big catalyst of no mistakes, just go. What are the best ideas? Any ideas? Good ones, bad ones. Let's get them down.
Yep.
So if you're by yourself, or you share in your Slack, but the internet used to be pretty cool before SEO gobbled up everything that was, original and fun. So if you get beyond the first page of search results for whatever you're kind of tinkering with, or, want to find something relevant or inspiring, there's a bunch of pages down there. And some of the good stuff I found, or more informative stuff, happens on 2, 3, 4. And it's, don't know what to say. It's kind of just a fun exercise, but also there have been some articles backdated that have given me better insights than just the trendiest Fortune magazine title that, is eating up the rankings. And it can also be good for competitor research and insight, because there have been a lot of companies that have existed. They might not still be around, but sometimes it's archived. Sometimes, you find a similar company or a company you could partner with that, again, they might be early stage. They might not be the biggest player in town, but I don't know, if you can't find them, you don't know they exist.
And that's interesting that SEO has kind of brought on this new world of like using search engines. Like, yes, it's been optimized, if you will, for like getting the biggest or highest paying brands at the front, at the forefront of a search. But yeah, digging through, particularly for founders, like dig through and don't be fooled by SEO tactics that you yourself might be using as well. Like to really do market research, like dig past what might just be an SEO function, like putting in front of you what people want to put in front of you.
Yeah.
Not maybe what you want to find.
I know. I miss my old Zanga site. I've been trying to find it. It's long gone.
Oh.
So with that though, also in healthcare, there's a lot of research and articles as well. And I found that to be enlightening to get past the first page, because again, lots of information right there, but you get into some more smaller topics, some more smaller research, but I found really insightful on certain disease-related medical device, applications, all that stuff. And this is a fun one too, but change the medium. So I have a lot of notebooks, I'm sure we all do. I've never been very good at Evernote or, anything too tech savvy, which is ironic, but I've gotten over that. I have found that if you are really, hooked to one notebook or your Evernote, and that's great. That might be your day-to-day operations, your planner. I get it. I have one of those too. But for creative thinking, branding, I found that like a grid paper sets the tone. I need to make a master list of investors I need to contact today. I need to make a to-do list of getting this website launched. For me, grid paper is business. And it's not on your screen, but it's something that you can just jot down what you need to do. It kind of keeps you in line. I don't know. It might be a psychological thing. It might just be something I've had from experience. So with that being said, a big blank piece of paper, it can be really intimidating. Sometimes it is. It's like, what am I supposed to do with this piece of paper? Like, I don't know. But it just opens it up. It's free form doodling, drawing, headline writing, big font, different colors. I don't know. It just can take the edge off if you're having a dead end in your thinking, or a logo design you want to show your designer and interpret that. And finally, this, a sketchbook is really fun because you can add a lot of different components to it. It can be just dedicated to like, this is where I can just think, I can just add ideas for my business. I can, no judgment zone. I can pull out an article from a magazine, a newspaper, and tape it in there. Maybe there's a color swatch I really like, put it in there. And it's just like this big record of any thought you can capture quickly on your desk, and an excuse for more office supplies, if anyone likes that. But I have found just even shifting up what you use off your screen can really kind of just help kickstart a different way of thinking.
That's great.
And I think that's all I've got.
Awesome. Well, I want to, first of all, thank you, Emmy. I feel like what we were really going for here today is just, okay, how can founders, early stage founders, at least step into the mindset? And I know we had titled this kind of finding focus, but how can you step into the mindset, find focus when you are creating a brand at a very early stage? Because it's some of that, it's the work that I think a lot of people don't like to do. And And there are a lot of really bad brands out there.
I know.
And I mean, it's true, but sometimes like a bad brand can like, I never like to say it will completely break, but it can slow a company because it doesn't, the brand itself doesn't compel the customer, user, investor to feel emotionally compelled to it. And we are emotional creatures. And if we feel drawn to a brand or narrative or mission or certain values, in some ways you can accelerate like the deepening of those relationships, whether it be with a customer or investor, et cetera. So again, thank you for sharing at least just some good tips and tricks to help founders get out of their everyday business ops, product, technology mindset. I am going to quickly share again. I shared it earlier, but everyone on the call, you do have a takeaway. And this is, it's a Drive link if you have trouble accessing it. I'm sharing it one more time. It's the workbook that Emmy put together from Jayne Studios. Again, I encourage all of you on the call to work through that workbook to help you get into that mindset. But if anyone has specific questions or maybe about your brand or the process of going through developing your brand or mission statement, I invite you to, again, submit in the chat or come off of mute, maybe ask questions of like any specific advice on getting into that mindset. I'll invite anyone on the call to do so now. Any questions?
It's totally cool if not.
Yeah.
I can talk a little bit if you want about
Yeah.
early stage branding. So I'm an entrepreneur myself, so I understand at the beginning it's tight. Everything's tight. And good branding can be expensive. And we rely on a lot of friends, maybe for some design work, or Fiverr has become really popular. And I don't diss any of that because it's what you've got to work with at the beginning. Lots of empathy there. It's hard. However, it might come to a point where there are smaller shops, smaller agencies out there that are very committed to, again, establishing a brand to evolve with. And that is something that we'd like to do. And we don't take a whole lot of time with it, which is not a bad thing, because what I have found to be the best way to do this, and you can do this internally with your own team, 3 to 5 week timeframe of brand assets, priority brand assets, what you can do in-house, because sometimes you can do a lot more than you think with tools available. Fiverr, Canva is also really great. And maybe it's a product, maybe it's a package design, maybe it's a website design. What is it that you really can't do? And that's where I would advise founders to kind of think about the investment, because sometimes the brand can make or break what you're doing.
Yeah.
And in healthcare, and especially in healthcare startups, a lot of the branding looks alike.
Yeah.
I do think that's a little bit of a problem within the industry. And it's there for a reason. It's sometimes it's very clinical, it's very clean, greens and blues. And it's okay. It's not all bad. But I might see a company starting up like that, and I read more about them. I see their product or their service they're providing, and I'm like, wait a second. Sometimes I feel like when we're on such a short timeline and sprinting through our businesses and trying to get them launched, there might be more power in taking one step back, rethinking the brand, and deciding how you could stand out from 5 of the other competitors with the blue and green logo.
I have a question just that I've seen a lot of Jumpstart Foundry founders do this, where they have completely rebranded or pivoted from a brand. Do you have maybe just some, again, this is the Jumpstart Distilled series, so like distill down like to the basics of like, if someone were to say, all right, I built a brand, it's not that, I was super scrappy at the beginning, which again, thank you for recognizing that. Like, founders do not have unlimited budgets to be spent on brand, website design, everything like that. But, sometimes maybe they've reached a point where, okay, now it's time to maybe invest a little bit more into developing that. Distill down for us, what are some of the first things founders should think about or prepare for if they're considering a brand transition or a rebrand?
Kind of goes back to the basics we discussed. Having that foundational message and mission down from the very beginning. It's okay to adapt if you don't have one that you love or want to redo. It's okay. But there are components that you started this business for a reason, and we don't have to throw everything away, because I believe that some of that is core to your messaging and core to your product. Now, we have to open our minds a little bit too with a rebrand, and especially if you're investing in a designer and agency, letting the reins off a little bit. I promise you that a lot of us are really intuitive creatives, and we'll take really good care of your vision, but also being open to maybe some different interpretations. Again, like I said, I might look at a company and I interpret it in a totally different way. I'm one person and I get that. But, marketing experience, trends, forecasting, there might be another way to think about this play. So foundation message, open-mindedness, and reevaluating what makes this brand spark, right? Like, is it your best friend? Is it something you're going to enjoy? Because it's a great opportunity. It's one of the most fun projects you can do is rebranding. It should not feel unfun or tedious. It should feel free.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I know it's, at least for me, whenever I have to get down to branding something, I get nervous about it. I feel like I'm not creative, but I do like the idea of, like, you want to like your brand, because if you like your brand, odds are someone else will like your brand.
Odds are. Now we've seen it go either way.
That's fair.
Because sometimes our personal taste can, and that's why it's great to get feedback, right? That's really important. Feedback from outside of friends and family. Maybe if you have connections, relationships with mentors, investors you trust, like anyone. Again, everyone can be creative, but what is that feedback? I mean, at Jayne, we are going through kind of a rebrand right now. So what started and moving into a different concept and expanding kind of into more focus group and data on, female healthcare users, we are really keeping some core elements of our color palette and our ethos, but we've made it its own thing, and it feels good. It feels balanced and like fresh. I think that's the word that everyone kind of looks for, just something fresh.
Got it. Well, I love to keep these, right at 50 minutes or so. And so we're about 4 minutes before then. So again, if you're on right now and you maybe want to ask Emmy a specific question, feel free to come off mute, or if there's something you just want to talk through, this is exactly what these webinars are for. Emmy, you've been amazing. Thank you for helping at least distill down some of the basics of creating a brand, potentially relaunching or redesigning a brand, and at least trying to get founders, and particularly healthcare founders that can be very technical or I'd say ops business focused, to feel okay that you can get into the fun, exciting, fresh side of branding.
Yes, I'm so happy to share. Very grateful for all of your time today. So thank you for spending it with me. And
And Emmy, are you okay sharing your email? If you want to maybe type that in the chat, if anyone has specific questions or wants to follow up with Emmy, she can share her best contact information perfect in the chat. So if you want to send her a message after this, I'm sure she'd love to hear from you.
Of course. I'm here to help. So I always say, I'm here to help.
Love it.
All
awesome.
right.
Well, we'll give everyone the gift of time back today. Thank you all so much for joining. And Emmy, particularly appreciate your insight, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye,
Thanks, everyone.